wasn't an airplane. It was not an airplane. It was down awfully low.
You're listening to Pursuit of the Paranormal podcast with your hosts, Ash Ellis and Greg Tomlinson.
Hey Ash, how are you doing?
Very good. Pretty tired today after a late night last night, but yeah, no, I'm good. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm also tired after watching you last night, but we've had a crazy week really of live broadcasts on TikTok, haven't we?
It's been mad.
So first of all, we went to Delamere Forest on Friday night. Well, we actually went to two places on Friday night. We live streamed from an abandoned pub just off the motorway near Manchester.
Yeah.
And then after going there, walking back to the car and seeing a traffic officer parked up waiting for us, we made our sort of move and went to the next venue, which was Delamere Forest, which a couple of years ago now, it was 2022, I think, maybe in 3 years.
23.
Was it 23? We went and filmed a documentary with Danny Moss for The Paranormal Investigator, which you can watch on YouTube now, which is still available, where we went UFO hunting, basically, and a bit of paranormal investigating in the woods in Delamere. Yeah. So we went back there on Friday with Witchfinder Matt, Paranormal ID, Ian, and two of the girls to investigate, Sarah and Emma. My Sarah and Emma. And weird stuff happened again. It was a fascinating evening. We had our biggest TikTok live audience. And it was wild. We I don't know how to even explain it. We had a massive crowd of people showing us and telling us that, like, there was lady in white, there was whispers, there was noises.
We kept hearing the whispers, kept hearing these weird voices and murmurings, and it was like every time we got close to it, it was getting further away. It's like it was leading us deeper into the forest.
That's what it was. It was exactly that. It was just always out of reach, wasn't it? Which was weird. And I know the girls got a growling sound. So yeah, it was a wild night. And then fast forward to last night.
Yeah.
So we're recording this on Wednesday. So Tuesday night, for anybody that called it on TikTok Live, Ash, and I was absolutely good. I wasn't there. I had to work. Ash was at Antwerp Mansion, again with the girls and Matt. And you're alone investigating.
I alone most of the night, like in the basement on my own. It's a big mansion, big Victorian mansion, 3 floors. So like when the other guys on the top floor, I was kind of in the basement, kind of separate the noise and stuff, and just did TikTok live for 3 hours.
That's insane.
So I didn't plan it for do an hour, like, and see how it goes, but. It was going that well. I just wanted to stay on. We had so much engagement, so many people watching.
Yeah.
It's really good.
So after Friday being our biggest TikTok audience and likes and everything, last night surpassed that. So
Massively.
we're fairly new to TikTok and going live, me and you, aren't we?
Yeah. That's the first time I'd done it on my own as well. So I was quite anxious about doing it anyway.
Yeah. I mean, having and doing the podcast for the last few years does help you to sort of like think off script a lot, which is
talking to nothing, which is
and that's a really weird thing, isn't it? Talking to nothing. You kind of just like, oh God, what have I got? Because if nobody says anything or nobody's on the live, which happens right at the start, there's nobody there. You kind of just Billy No Mates, for want of a better phrase, and you can start to see the numbers trickle up, and you're still chatting away. And if nobody's engaging, you're seeing all these people join, and then you're just like hoping somebody says something.
Some stay,
But yeah, so I was on my own account watching and interacting, and at one point you invited me on. So I was on for about 10 seconds.
No, I don't even know how I invited you. I was trying to make you a mod. Next minute, your face popped up on there. on the line. I don't know what I've done. First time
Luck-
I've done it on my own. First time I've been
luckily,
behind the controls.
I know, but you did an amazing job, and we got 150,000 likes. I can't believe that was insane.
Amazing.
I was
amazing.
I was crowd cheering from the comment section, so it was really good, and it was a really good live. Loads of weird stuff happened. So yeah, if anybody wants to check it out, we'll be going live every now and again. Well, it seems to be quite regular.
More often than not, I think. I've got the
Yeah,
bug for
so
it now. It's mad because when we first online jobs, I was paid to be a poker Twitch streamer. When Twitch was like quite new and all the rage, and I was paid not quite a nice amount actually just to stream poker for a poker company. And that again, when you first start, you're talking to no one. You have to get used to that, just talking out loud to yourself, and just so that kind of helped, I guess, from taking me back to being a poker streamer all those years ago.
Yeah, wow. We're now, look at us, fast forward with TikTok generation, Ash.
I know.
And yeah, you did a grand job, and it is something that people think they can do, and until you start doing it, it's definite knack of trying to keep talking for 3.5 hours. So when essentially you might not get anybody talking back to you, you've got nobody physically talking to you. It's all on words, basically on screen.
Yeah.
So yeah, check us out on there. We've got loads planned. Ash might be going out again over the next couple of days.
Yep, definitely.
I'm going to be going out to a potentially, well, I've never seen it streamed anywhere, but it might well be. It's somewhere in Oxfordshire. I won't say where it is. That's the joy of streaming. You don't have to say anything until you're there. But where I'm going is potentially there's a curse been placed on visiting monarchs who incite violence. Many kings have died when they've been coming into battle in Oxford at this particular place because of a particular saint. So Oxford has a saint, and yeah, so I found that today. So might be popping out there over the weekend. So that'd be good. And then might be checking out some other locations in Oxford based on the fact that we had some crazy stuff at the Turf Tavern. So, which actually I've got a video I need to put up of that I don't even think I've sent to you. So I'll send you that, and it's the K2 going off specific in that pub. The K2 going off, and me and Sarah just look at each other as if to say, "What the hell?" So we were doing a live investigation right next to people taking and eating food. This is very weird in the middle of a chain pub in the middle of Oxford. So yeah, it should be good. So yeah, it's been really fun engaging with a lot of people on TikTok.
Hopefully reaching a new audience as well as our existing loyal fan base. And we see our listeners on the chat on TikTok as well, which is good as well, which is cool.
So if you guys want to check us out on TikTok, we're just Pursuit of the Paranormal on TikTok as well. Come follow us and go on our link tree, and you can see TikTok from there. But it is a platform that is great for streaming. It really is. It's a good streaming platform, and I know there's a lot of people that use it successfully to spread the word. So we've been using it more for sort of like short videos about daily videos this year about everything paranormal, UAP, like random sort of facts about strange places and high strangeness. And we've also been doing the streaming as well now. So it's kind of the other side of our lives. We chat to each other all the time on the podcast, but it's the other side of all the weird stuff that we see all the time and all the stuff we get up to. So so yeah, so it's been fab, and I've really enjoyed it as well myself. Very tired though, and like you alluded to at the start, it can be a late night.
It is, but it's worth it.
Oh, 100%. So tonight on the podcast, we are joined by a gentleman by the name of Brian. And Brian is an account that I come across on TikTok. We've just had a 10-minute conversation about TikTok as well, so it feeds in nicely. An account that we've followed over the last couple of weeks called Ghostwriter. And there's a new book that's just been launched over the last month or so called Ghostwriter, and it's based on the events that's happened in Brian's house. And I don't even know what I was going to say there. I completely lost my train of thought. Sorry, Ash.
It's all right.
So we're going to be chatting to Brian tonight about what has inspired the book, the events that have taken place in the house since he's been in there, because I know there's been some deaths in the house since sort of the early 20th century. So welcome along, Brian. How are you today?
I'm doing great. How you guys doing?
I hope that intro done you justice.
Oh, it was fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Loved it.
Good. Yeah, we're good, thanks. So people will recognise that you've got an American accent. So whereabouts in America are you?
I live in Fort Worth, Texas. So I don't know if y'all ever been down to Texas, but yeah, that's where I am right now. And literally just moved to Fort Worth a little over a year ago. So I've only been here about a year, but I've been in Texas for a while. So
okay. So is it the year ago that you moved into this particular house?
yes, yeah, we moved in February 4th, 2024.
Oh wow! And so, what can you sort of describe what the house is like? I mean, in the UK, we've got like a sort of standardy kind of house. What kind of house is it?
So they call this style that I live in a craftsman style here in America, kind of like arts and crafts style. It was basically an architecture that came right after the Victorian era. Most of the houses in my neighborhood actually are between 1890 to about 1930 as the latest. So we live in a historic neighborhood, which is actually the largest historic neighborhood in the Southwest United States. So we have a lot of intact old homes. It's just a really special place when you walk through the neighborhood. It's like literally stepping back in time, just with all the different old houses that you see. So, but yeah, the craftsman style was a popular style, kind of after the Victorian. And I do have pictures of my home on my Instagram or my TikTok that you can see to kind of see what it looks like.
Cool. Yeah, I've just had a quick Google of craftsman style home, and I'll get the picture of what it's like. Yeah, cool.
So that's quite old for American houses, really, compared to.
Yeah, you guys are laughing at us, man. I'm like 1911 is when my house was built. It's so old, and you guys are just like, hold my beer, you know.
Well, to be fair, my house that I just moved from was only built in 2019, so it's only 6 years old.
Oh, so not every single house in England's from like 1620.
No, unfortunately.
Okay.
Not, no. So
I guess I was told wrong.
You got me on that, but yeah, it is interesting that when we've been doing the podcast, we speak to a lot of people in the US, and they say about some of the buildings are like 100 years old, and that's quite young. It can be quite young in the UK. Like we've got Oxford University. Some of the grounds at Oxford have been there over 1,000 years. So it's interesting.
Well, all my relatives are from the UK. I mean, we came down in the 1700s, though, so it's been quite a while. Yeah, so I've never even been there, and it's definitely on the bucket list for sure. So I will be there someday. Maybe meet you guys someday. That would be super cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Whereabouts in the UK are they from? Do you know?
I did one of those 23andMe's, so I don't know how accurate those are, but most of it was the Greater London area.
Okay.
And I know my last name is Bateman. My last name is Bateman, Bateman, and I believe there are a lot of Batemans over there in the UK.
Okay, cool. I'll have a look into that. Yeah, well, I'm about an hour from Greater London myself. Ash is a bit further up the north of the country, sort of about 3 hours from me, Ash, I think, aren't you?
Yeah,
roughly.
Yeah.
So, and that's quite a widespread in the UK. I know that's probably not so much of a distance in Texas, but
yeah, no, Texas is kind of like a big country, a big small country, I guess. Yeah, it's huge, but we're not the biggest actually. Alaska, I believe, is bigger, of course, and then California too, I believe. if I'm not mistaken. Or maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm not. I don't know.
it's mad. It's mad
Yeah.
that it's so big that it's way bigger than our country. So you moved into the house last year.
Yeah, so let me
What
give you a
happened?
little bit of
Yeah.
a backstory. Okay, so I'm not going to talk about me, but I'm a kind of a part of this story, which I
Mhm.
don't like to be. I did everything I could to not be a part of this story because I used to write comedy for radio, and I've always been behind the scenes, so I'm not like a guy that likes to be in front of the camera kind of person. So um, but then I realized when we moved here that it's just like I had to become part of this story, unfortunately. But anyway, it is kind of cool though. So yeah, so I mentioned I used to write radio for a station in America, and it was a show called the Gary Burbank Show, and I got to write for him for like 4 years, and then that was the only writing that I ever did. It was just a side gig. Everything else I ever did was just regular jobs, that type of stuff, boring stuff. But I had a passion for writing. I loved that 4 years. I literally would wake up, thinking of things to write and thinking, skits and whatever I could do. And when it stopped, it was just like it was, it's like very. It was kind of hard because I didn't have that creative outlet anymore. I was also a musician before I was a writer, so I used to play music. So I always need some kind of creative outlet in my life, and when I don't have one, I get really kind of bummed out. So um, when we moved into this house, my wife was looking for homes. We always loved Fort Worth. I don't know if you ever get a chance to come to the Fort Worth stockyards. It's phenomenal. And we live about 10 minutes away from the stockyards and go there quite a bit, actually. And that was one of the reasons we moved over here because we just love the stockyards and just the area in general. The history here is phenomenal. It's incredible. I mean, that as far as Indian history goes, you got Comanche. Like we live on Comanche land right
Oh
now.
wow.
Yeah, and the buffalo used to run through here, and I mean, it's you think of Texas and cowboys. It's like Fort Worth is that kind of vibe. Dallas is a different story. That Dallas is like L.A. So we're better in Fort Worth. Um, so when she brought us up to this old house, we always loved old homes. Um, I just like knew like you had that feeling like it just feels like a home, and I'm like this. I said I could see myself living here. Like right when we walked in, I'm like this is amazing. It's got the original hardwood floors. It's got the original box beams. It's got the original solid wood doors, of course, like the 5-panel doors with the glass doorknobs. It has the original built-ins, and it's for a home this old to have all that stuff kind of intact is special. It also has pocket doors too between the family room and the dining room, which I love. It's just really cool thing to have for a house, especially in a Craftsman. But anyway, so long story short, I knew I had to have the house. I don't know why I needed to, have the house, but I'm like, we got to get this done. And we were in an apartment at the time, and we still had 6 months left on our lease, so we had to cancel that, pay some money to get out of that to come over here. And we moved in February 4th. Everything's good, everything's fine until about a week or so into it. My dog would not sleep in our bedroom. And we've had several houses with this dog, like 3 houses with this dog. He's never been like that ever. He would not stay. He would always maybe stay till about 10 o'clock in his bed. And then he'd run out, go out to the front of the house and sleep out there until morning. He just did not like the back part of the house at all. To this day, he still doesn't. We have to actually put him in our bed now for him to sleep with us in that room. That's the only way he'll sleep in the room. So that was kind of our first sign that something was weird. And we didn't really think much of it. But as this is going on, I started researching the house because I'm like, I got to figure out, I want to find out who lived here. I love history. I've always loved history. So I just became kind of obsessed with finding out who lived here. And we had already known previously before we moved in that there was a lady that had died here, because I Googled the address and I typed in like death or something because I'm like, I wonder if somebody had died in that house because it's so old and it's normal. I mean, people die in these houses all the time back then. It was more common than dying in a hospital actually. So, but the first thing that I see that pops up is an obituary from October 31st, 2009.
Wow.
You know what October 31st is? It's Halloween. And Halloween is huge in this neighborhood too. You wouldn't believe it. I mean, they shut down the streets. Anyway, it's it's a huge holiday, and I was like, I just it kind of I don't know. It didn't really scare me. I was just thinking like, oh God, if there's a perfect way, somebody to haunt the house, the dying on Halloween, and so not only did she die on Halloween, but she, we know where she died because I actually looked up her son on Facebook because I knew I forgot how I found out his name, but he's like in his late 60s, probably early 70s. And I found him on Facebook and I hit him up to see if he could come to the house to tell me about what he remembered growing up as a kid. Cause he was, I think he lived in the house from like 1950 or 1960 to probably 1980, something like that. Um, and his name was Stuart Monroe, he was the son of the lady that passed away on Halloween. And so he told me like where she passed away in the house, and it was in the family room,
Oh, wow.
which is right behind me right now where I'm sitting. Um, I'm in like the TV room, which is a little separate room off the family room. It used to be one giant room, but then when they renovated the house, they added this separate room, which I actually love. I kind of use it as an office, TV room. Um, but anyway, so that was the first thing with my dog, and then finding out that kind of was wild. But after the dog thing started happening, the next thing we knew, my wife comes up to me and says, "Did you pull the curtain back in the bathroom?" And I was like, "What do you mean pull it back? Like, pull it back?" Like, and I'm like, "No, I wouldn't pull a curtain back, in the bathroom." And it was pulled back. She was like outside looking in, and she saw the curtain move to the side. And it wasn't the first thing. I was like, okay, well, it was probably me. I probably vacuumed, and the vacuum blew the curtain and it stuck over to the thing. And so I was trying to like figure out how in the world that would have happened. So I basically you know went through all those things. I actually vacuumed it again to see if it would do it, and it didn't do it. It didn't go that far. It did move, but here's the second thing is I actually have a touch of OCD. So my curtains are always like perfect when they're closed. They're always, I make sure everything, is like the same and, patterned. And so I'm very, I can see like everything in the house. And if there's something's a little bit out of place, like I know, you know what I mean? So it would be very unlike me as well to let that slide. But we were just chalked it up to maybe vacuuming or whatever. Well, then a little bit later, a couple weeks later, um, the other curtains moved, but they all moved the same way, but they didn't move as far, but they were all like the same movement. And so again, I'm like, that I just you're like, okay, again, maybe it was, you say the wind and everything, but I know the day that happened there was no wind, and I think it was in the spring, and our AC wasn't even on, so it was like there was no air blowing, because we noticed it when we came home from eating. We went out to eat, came back, and then she called me into the bathroom and was like, look at this. And so that was the second thing, along with the dog thing still going on. So the big thing, I guess, that we like noticed was the when my wife was in the kitchen. We had a little plastic dog bowl. It's a little travel dog bowl that we take with our dogs when we go, trips and whatever. Just started wobbling on its own. It was on the kitchen floor, and it's just started, moving. And she, yelled at me right away. I came in, and we were thinking like, okay, maybe you hit it, with your leg and you didn't realize it or something like that. But she was actually working in the kitchen pretty far from it. So like it wouldn't, there was no way she could have hit it with her foot or anything, because we were redoing the floors at that time. We pulled up the tile that the flipper put up over the flooring, because the original hardwood floors were underneath. And so we had a guy come out and refinish them and stuff. So we had been working on some prep work when that happened. So again, that was kind of the craziest thing, where we really couldn't, say what it was. But then the biggest thing that has happened so far happened on Christmas Day. And my family was there, my son, my two sons, my daughter, and then their, boyfriend, girlfriends. And my son had put a water bottle on the table, like just a regular drinking plastic water bottle you buy at the convenience store or whatever. And when everyone was leaving, well, there were some people that were already gone, but then when other people were leaving, my son was still here. He went to get his water bottle, and it had been turned upside down on its cap. Um, which, if you take a plastic water bottle and do that, sometimes it's kind of hard to even balance it because we were. So he thought like I did it, as a joke or something. I thought he did it as a joke. My wife thought I did it as a joke. Everybody thought somebody did it as a joke because we laugh at what's going on in this house, and we're always like, "Oh, it's the ghost!" Ooh.
Yeah.
So my kids were, I was telling them, I'm like, if you did this, tell me now. I'm not going to be mad, whatever, because I'm documenting this stuff. And they literally all swore up and down that nobody did it, and I believe them because they would have told me because they know when I'm not messing around because I mess around all the time because I love just to laugh and have fun, but when Dad's serious, it's serious. So yeah, so that was the weirdest thing that's happened so far, and that's the one that kind of makes me a little bit kind of freaked out because something physically had to move that. And how do you do that? How does that happen? Like, I don't know any of those answers. That's the kind of thing. That's why I love talking to people like you because you guys have done all these investigations and stuff, and you may have at least some suggestions of what might have happened. Now, the psychic that was here said it was something called an elemental, and that's where I kind of was just my turned my brain off and was like, nah, I'm not, nah. So, but that's what she said it was. She said it had enough power to do something, and it likes to play little pranks here and there. So that was her explanation for what it was, but I don't know. But anyway, so that was kind of the most crazy thing that's happened here since we've been here. But I did a few days ago. I had posted a video of my dog, my other dog. We have two dogs. The dog that doesn't sleep in the room is a dachshund. The other dog, she sleeps in a room in a cage, is a rescue. We got her. I think we got her in November, and she's very quirky, but she's also seems to be very intuitive. um, we were sitting on the couch, and she looked over the edge of the couch and barked at nothing, jumped down, went out of the den and was in the family room and would not come back into the den, no matter what. I mean, and she has never done this before, ever. So I recorded her. I was saying, Molly, come on in, and I was recording it. I put this on the Instagram, I think, and the TikTok, and she would not come in. And then she started looking up in the air, and then she just left. But later that day, she did come back in, and we're both sitting on the couch again. She's laying down, and I heard somebody say hi, and it was like hi. It was like a whisper. It said hi, and she looked exactly the same time I looked, and we looked to the right of us, basically where she was looking down earlier in that day, and that's kind of where it was coming from in that area. Um, and that was I kept saying to myself, okay, I was thinking, is it somebody outside? Is it you always, what was that? But there was no other explanation other than it literally sounded like it was in the room. And the thing that's interesting about that is the investigators, paranormal investigators, caught two EVPs in our bedroom that both say hey. So we had two hays in the bedroom, and I got an audible hi in the den. And then with her, her behavior earlier that day, it's not proof, but you just kind of put pieces together and just let people come to their own conclusions, I guess. But and then I always think, like, did I really hear that? But she heard it too. So yeah, I did really hear that. And it was weird that we looked at the same time. So yeah, so that just happened.
There's quite a bit of history to the house. Like I say, it's an old neighbourhood.
Yes.
So what kind of things that happened in the house?
Okay. So when I first moved into the house, I became obsessed with the house and doing research. And so I would spend all day on my phone on the couch doing research. I signed up for 23 or not 23 me, ancestry.com. I did all the archives of the newspapers to pay for that stuff, where you literally just type in your address and, it shows you the old newspaper articles. From the Fort Worth Star Telegram was our local paper here. And the articles went back to, I think, like 1905 or something like that. So our house was built in 1911. So, I was like, okay, well, there should be some articles. So I started looking into the house and the articles of the house. But the first thing I find is a guy named Alicia Morford, um, who died in my home on January 18th, 1914. So I started looking up who he was, and it took a long time, but I found out that he was a former Union soldier, um, from the Indiana infantry. It was like the 68th Infantry, I believe, Company C. So he, fought in the Civil War, in his, obviously youth or whatever. Um, and then he like fought at all these famous battles. He fought at the Battle of Chickamauga, which was the second bloodiest battle in the Civil War. He fought at the Battle of Mumfordsville, which is the first one I think he fought in. And he got captured, so he was actually a prisoner of war at one point. Fought at that, I think, the Battle of Nashville, the Battle of Chattanooga. So he saw a lot of action, and somehow he came down with his family in around 1911, 1912. I think he moved in this house in 1912. I think this house was probably built at the end of 11, and somebody moved in 12. And he was a part of two married couples that he came down with. So he was like the older uncle of somebody. That's how he ended up here. They came down to work for the railroad because I live literally right by the railroad tracks. So they would probably just walk to work from the house. But yeah, so I thought that was interesting that he had been in the Civil War but then so I turned out to find the next death, and these weren't all in order. I found actually like Martha's death in 2009 first. But I'm just going to put these in order just so we can just go in order, because this will kind of start making sense to you as I start talking about some of this stuff.
Fab.
So the next death was a lady named Anna Lubbock Kennedy. She died in my home just on December 26th, 1919. So Anna Lubbock Kennedy was a daughter of the Republic of Texas, I found out. And her father's name was Thomas Saltus Lubbock, who the town Lubbock, Texas, is named after. So he was huge, Confederate. He actually never saw action in the Civil War because he died before. He died of some kind of disease or something before the Civil War, or about right when the Civil War started. But he's really well known in Texas history. So we found out that she was in Fort Worth because she had some family that lived a couple streets over, and another house in Fort Worth. So I think she probably came up here in her older age to just be near her family. But so being that her dad was a Confederate, her dad actually co-founded a fighting force called the Terry's Texas Rangers. They're a really well-known fighting force in Texas during the Republic. But what he did is Thomas actually went to meet with, I think it was Robert E. Lee, and he offered up his services for Terry's Texas Rangers to fight for the Confederacy in the Civil War. Well, it turned out that, remember, Alicia Morford, his unit actually fought against Terry's Texas Rangers at the Battle of Chickamauga, at the Battle of Nashville, at the Battle of Chattanooga. So they actually fought against each other. And I just thought it was kind of weird that, here's a Union soldier member dying in my home, and then less than 5 years later, here's a really well-known Confederate dying. And we think they died in the same room because it's our master bedroom now. It used to be the guest room. So I would think that mom probably slept in the guest room. The married, her son-in-law and her daughter slept in the main bedroom or whatever. So they could have died in the same area of the house, from what we speculate. We don't have documentation of that, but so let's see. So after that, let's see, the next death, we jump all the way to March 17th, 1977. Now, this is another interesting story. This was a guy who his name was Prince Carlisle. He was born in Fall Rivers, Massachusetts. And Fall River is the home of the famous Lizzie Borden. I don't know if you guys, of course, probably know the Lizzie Borden case.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So he was born and raised in Fall River, and he actually ended up getting a job with the Fall River News, like I guess right out of high school. And he would recall actually seeing Lizzie Borden walking down the street as an older lady, and the kids taunting her with that Lizzie Borden took an axe and gave her mother 40 whacks chant, which is just like wild to think about. You know, just can you imagine just seeing that with your own eyes? Like, wow, you know. So I guess that was one of his memories. I found an article about him talking about that. That's why I know that story. And then I talked to his son about that story too. I guess that was his claim to fame, as he saw Lizzie Borden getting taunted. So
Wow. Interestingly, very quick interjection. You
yeah,
said March the 17th, which
yeah,
is St. Patrick's Day,
yes,
but that's actually 1977. I was born that week. I was born on March 11th, 1977. Very weird.
really,
There we go. Just a weird little
wow,
thing there. Yeah.
that's crazy. Wow, that is weird.
Mhm.
Okay, and this whole experience is like I swear I believe in connections now, and maybe we're connected somehow, and we were supposed to talk to each other. I always like feel like that when I talk to people. Like I think I was supposed to talk to you, and
You would not believe the synchronicity that we have when we record the podcast. We've got people we've spoken to. We've spoken to one guest, and then we spoke to some other guests, and they actually knew each other, and it was completely at random. We've had uh, people that live in a village, or there's a village down the road from me, and we spoke to somebody in the US, and she was from the same named
yeah,
place. Just all
wow.
very, very weird. Yeah. Sorry, I did interrupt
No,
you.
no, they say it's a small world for a
Mm,
reason, I guess, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I mean, we are all connected. Well, I mean, we're all connected no matter what, but it's like I think we're connected a lot more than we know. We just need to talk
100%.
to each other to find out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So,
Sorry. Yeah.
all right, so he passed away in my family room, March 17th, 1977. He wrote for the Fall River News, but then after the Fall River News, he did establish a career in the newspaper world, and he wrote for the New York Times for like 5 years. And I think he did a column, like his claim to fame for the New York Times. He got a front pager about DuPont, the chemical company, inventing or coming out and inventing nylon. So yeah, that was, I guess, his claim to fame is, telling the world that nylon has been invented. Before they were supposed to announce it, I guess, is what the thing was. The DuPont didn't know, he was going to do. I don't know how he knew. Whatever. That's, I mean, pretty lame story, but it's like it's still kind of cool in a way. So I mean, it would have been cool if it was something different than like nylon. You know what I mean? Like if he found out that like beer was invented or something cool. So all right. So anyway, so after he had worked there, this is where it gets kind of weird because he got married in Fall River and he had 3 kids. Okay, so they had a family. When they moved to New Jersey, when he worked for the New York Times, I guess they were still together. But then, for some reason, he left his family, so he just took off, and they couldn't find him. And I found a newspaper article when they did find him, and they found him 3 years later in Dallas, or no, not in Dallas, in Fort Worth, Texas, working for the Fort Worth Star Telegram, in writing a financial column, and he had changed his name to Harold Monroe from Prince Carlisle. So he completely changed his name. Just completely just came out and started the new life and everything. So I would love to know the backstory on what happened with the Pryor family, but there's probably no way, I'll ever know. And I don't want to like ask his son, that's not like the kind of thing you want to tell, like, hey, tell me, why did your dad leave his other family? I mean, and start a new family, because he had 3 kids here as well. So, but from what I know, he just was totally, estranged from his family for the rest of his life. Um, so, but let's see. The next death would be after that would be okay. That would be Martha. Yes. All right. So Martha was married to Harold, um, and she was the one that passed away on October 31st, 2009. And then the last death that we know of, which we found out from our neighbors after we moved in was February 3rd, 2023. And like I said, we had been moving in February 3rd, but 2024, but we actually, were permanent February 4th. So we basically moved in a year, to the day the guy died. And he died in our guest room, which used to be the master bedroom, but it's now we use it as the guest room. And that room is very active as well. I mean, pretty much every room in this house is pretty active, especially when the paranormal people come. It's like they know they're coming, and they want to put a show on or something. Because I don't really try to pay attention to every single thing that goes on in my house every day. My eyes aren't always that wide open. They're definitely more open than they were before, though. So, but so that's my house. I haven't even gotten to my street yet. I mean, the reason I'm so scatterbrained with this story, there's so much information that it's just so hard to follow it all. And I haven't even scratched the surface yet on a lot of this stuff. But for instance, next door to me, there was a suicide. A gentleman was suffering from cancer. He was a former military guy, and I guess he just had enough of the pain and went in his backyard and shot himself. His name was Sam. And then 2 doors down on the other side of me in 1998, there was a kid. Well, man, he was 18, so he was a grandson of. His grandmother was basically letting his dad and him live with her. I guess I'd lived with them for a while, and I guess something happened. She was going to kick him out of the house because I guess he was doing drugs or whatever. So he ended up beating her to death with his bare fists, and they found some satanic symbols in some notebooks and stuff. But again, you know what? This is 1998, and I used to draw the Motley Crue pentagram, in my notebook and stuff, or like Iron Maiden. I'd have Eddie pictures and stuff, so I don't always go to Satanism, as the first thing, but you never know. I mean, he was definitely drawing some stuff. And then a few doors down from that, a few doors down from that, and then across the street, in 1999, there was not an elderly, but a retired couple, who were beaten to death, and that case has never been solved. And then in 2020, a little farther up the street, this mentally ill mother said that she was hearing voices that were telling her to kill her daughter because if she didn't, something worse was going to happen to her. So she decided to take a knife and slit her throat and put her in a trash can. And then she called 911, and when they came, she basically just admitted that she did it. In 1923, there was a big explosion and fire on the street, a few houses down from me. Affected the house actually across the street, so it was a pretty close, explosion to this house. But I don't think this house got damaged. But so that's kind of some of the street history. And when we had the paranormal team out and the psychic out, we're just trying to figure out is this I don't believe in curses, but they almost it's almost like this street is cursed, and it's not just the street. I mean, this neighborhood has such a history that actually if I get to write my next book, I'm going to go to the next street and I'm going to focus on 3 things that happen on that street and then incorporate that in the book as well, because my book's fiction, but again, the real story behind the book is pretty incredible. But I put in these stories into the book, and I think I even used the real dates, and stuff like that. So but as far as the book's concerned, I I was talking to you about comedy writing, and I did that for a while, but I'd never intended to write a book in my life ever. I mean, it was nothing, nothing I ever even thought of. I mean, because I would not even know how to begin to write a book, honestly. I mean, I just wrote little skits, one-liners or whatever, and that's, to me, is simple. But when you actually have to sit down and write a book, that's a different story. So, but I knew this story had to be told. I'm just there's so many weird coincidences and just things that have happened here that connections. Because I didn't tell you, like one of the ladies that lived here back in the teens was from Anderson, Indiana, and that's where my uncle and my aunt met at Anderson City College and got married and raised a family in Anderson, Indiana. And Anderson, Indiana is like this podunk little town. Like, but you were talking about connections, it's just like, what was a lady from Anderson, Indiana doing in Fort Worth, Texas, and but she was another one that actually, when she lived here, had cancer and suffered and went home to Anderson, Indiana to die. I have that documented as well. That was like in 1915, I believe, but she didn't pass in the home, but she was very ill in my home.
Wow.
So that, why I'm scattered though? Can you
wow.
Yeah.
I can understand why you are. I can understand why. So there's a lot of history, and not just in the house itself, but also in the local community. So you start finding all of this out. How does that make you feel about living in the house?
I don't know. It actually doesn't make me feel bad. It actually, I kind of feel like I belong in this house. Like I should be, like the deja vu and stuff. Like, what I didn't tell you too is when I was I was going through kind of a rough patch in the year 2007, and feeling sorry for myself, blah blah blah. And I was thinking, man, like, there's so many people in this world that have it way, way worse than I. I mean, I have a home, I have a family, a beautiful wife, but I was just kind of going through one of those woe is me phases, but I kind of smacked myself out of it, and I ended up getting a tattoo, and I got a 4-leaf clover tattoo because it reminded me that I'm lucky, right? To be, I have my health. You know what I mean? That's just to have your health. You should be thankful for every day. And so I got that tattoo. And then it turned out, when Harold Monroe, who was also a writer, he had passed away on March 17th, 1977 in my family room. I was like, wow. So here I am, in a time in my life, wondering, what am I going to do? Because my kids are all out of the house now. So I'm an empty nester. I could go get a job at, being a cashier at a convenience store or whatever, but that's not my passion. My passion is creating and writing. So the way I see this thing, and it may sound crazy to you, and I'm not crazy, I swear to God, but I feel like it's like Harold was guiding me here because he wanted me to get back into writing, and he was going to give me his story and this whole story, to create this book to get me back into what my passion is, but to also get his name out there as well, because I think he wanted his due. I think he wanted his name out there because I think, I don't know that for a fact, but, it seems like sometimes, people always want fame, fortune, they want the big bestseller or whatever it would be. And so I kind of saw it as a way of him using me to get this done, because I tell you what, I was possessed. I was obsessed with this book. When I called the author I knew to do this, she laughed at me, and I think she hung up on me because she told me she doesn't like scary stuff. And I was like, well, Jen, I said, I don't like to read. So this is a perfect project for us to put out a horror book. Here's somebody, the author is afraid of, horror, and I hate reading. So but I didn't take no for an answer, and I wouldn't take no for an answer. I'm like, no, you're writing it, you're doing it. So she just took it on, decided to do it. And when we were creating the main character, Ryan O'Connor, in the book, who's patterned based after me, kind of in real life, but so when she told me that she wouldn't do it, whatever, I insisted, and we ended up doing it. But when she was doing Ryan O'Connor's character, she's like, I think he should have a tattoo. And she's like, I'm going to give him a 4-leaf clover tattoo. And she said she's going to put it on his wrist because it would be kind of a hip, cool thing for the character. And she didn't know. She didn't know I have a 4-leaf clover tattoo on my wrist. I swear to God.
Wow.
And she was so, my jaw dropped, and I took my phone, I took a picture of my tattoo immediately. I sent it to her. I'm like, I'm like, whoa. I'm like, okay, you have to write this. This is meant to be. And that's another little meant to be, reason that It's just like you feel like, okay, this is crazy, but it's true. And then she also put in the book, I have my daughter in the book, and she had my daughter's toy. Her favorite toy was an old stuffed Grover toy. And I was like, why did you pick Grover? She's like, I don't know. I like Grover. And I'm like, but Grover's kind of an odd, you know, person. Why didn't you pick like, Big Bird, or, one of the more popular toys, Elmo, that's a big one. Why Grover? She's like, I just like Grover. But my wife actually has an old Grover doll, and we have it in our house in a box because it was my wife's absolute favorite doll when she was growing up. So,
That's
there
weird.
was another little weird connection, that happened with us. And I'm like, man, this is cool. So, so we collaborated, on the book, but I gave her a lot of creative freedom as well, because, I'm thinking, you know, if you're an author, I want her to write the way she writes. I wanted I wanted to give her that flexibility and freedom. And she did she did an amazing job. I think, it's not a perfect book because, we have to edit ourselves, and, she's not an editor, she's a writer, but she's decent at editing. So she did it herself. But the cool thing now with the technology that they have, if you have a mistake in your book, you can fix it, and then just upload it, and it's, if somebody buys a print edition or whatever, it's all changed, so it makes things a lot less stressful, I think, if you can do that. It's like, I guess, different editions in a way,
Yeah.
digitally.
So thanks for running through all of that. Like I say, it's mad that you've sort of got into this house. The neighborhood sounds wild with all these deaths, all this history, prominent people in connection with the house. So can you give us a brief view of like exactly the type of activity that seems to happen in the house?
Yeah. So, I mean, the the activity's not like, it's not like, the Conjuring. It's nothing like scary.
Yeah.
It's I've never felt like in danger or threatened. We kind of make jokes of things. When the medium was here, she said there was a woman that's in the kitchen and is always in the kitchen and doesn't like when we go in the kitchen and cook, because it's kind of like her kitchen. So we nicknamed this lady the Kitchen Witch. So when we go in the kitchen, we're like, hey, Kitchen Witch, we're coming in. You don't get us, whatever. But when the investigators came, they had stuff set up in the kitchen, and they were in another room. Her husband was in the kitchen though, and on, is it called the ovulus, where those words pop up?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
The ovulus said, "The witch is here." And then as it said that, in the kitchen, the little REM pod thing was going off, and whatever he had on the floor was like light, some of the lights and stuff were going off at the same time. At the same
Oh,
time. So I thought that was kind of unique. I thought that was kind of interesting. Because again, we jokingly call her the Kitchen Witch. We don't know who it is, but I think it's probably Martha Monroe, because Martha lived here from 1957 until 2009. So if anyone would be kind of possessive of a kitchen, my theory would be probably somebody like that.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
the medium also suggested that it was also Viola, who was the one I was telling you from Anderson. She only lived here probably for 2 years, because I think she had cancer or stomach cancer. So maybe it was like, she never really got to use the kitchen like she would have wanted, and she's back here and she's proud of her. I don't know. To me, the Martha one sounds more like, the
Mm.
possibility. But so we actually do have names now. I was also told that Harold is here, the writer,
Yeah.
um, and I was told by two mediums actually he was here. One was from a phone call that was totally unrelated. I was talking to this guy about something completely off topic, and it turned out he was writing a book. And so we were talking about books, and then he told me something about um, stop talking. And he's like, I see this nerdy kid from some show, How I Met Your Mother. He's got like a bowl cut, and he's like a nerd looking kid, and he's like, but he's an older guy. He's not young like that. And I said, I know exactly what you're talking about because I have a picture of Harold Monroe who's got the same kind of glasses and he's got a bow tie on and he's got kind of nerdy looking hair. It's not the same haircut, but it's the same vibe. And for him to say that, I was like, wow. He said, yeah. He said, and then this is kind of what kind of blows me away of what he said, because he said, well, yeah, he's there because he's afraid of what's on the other side. It's like the unfinished business theory, basically. So he said that he's there to help me to do this project. And then once he does his good deed, then maybe he can move on. But to me, like the question would be, why would he be afraid to move on? Well, he might be afraid to move on because of what he did to his first family about, leaving and abandoning him. I mean, so, but then the other medium said he just comes and goes. So, but she said he is here, but he comes and goes. So I don't know what that's all about, but and then there's supposedly a man in our master bathroom who just sits out and stares out the window. There's supposedly another man, grumpy, grouchy old man that sleeps in our room. And then the elemental thing that she said. And then just the energy, I guess she talked about some of the strongest energy that she's felt. And she, like, I guess felt drained the next day after she was here. So I don't know. Again, like I was telling you about mediums, but this is the thing that, and I know this isn't like, I don't know if this is the kind of activity you're looking for. I know you're probably looking for like glasses flying off shelves and, like I don't have any of that stuff. So I don't mean to disappoint, we've had like experiences, but it's not like every single day, something's happening here and there, I mean, it's just like, it's very random and surprising, but I could go 2 weeks with nothing happening. And then all of a sudden something happens, you know what I mean? So it doesn't really seem to have any rhyme or reason of when or where things happen. So, but with the medium thing, when she was in our bathroom, she kept saying the name Doreen. She was like, Doreen. I keep seeing Doreen, Doreen. She's in pain. She's, she has heart trouble, Doreen. And so we're like, well, we don't know of anybody named Doreen. We said, but there was a lady that lived back here because our master bathroom used to be what's called a porch. It's like a porch room. It's like a sitting room. It's got a bunch of windows. So in the summertime, you could open up all the windows, and that would be your cool 100 degree breeze blowing in. In Texas, it doesn't really make much difference. You open your window, you know what I mean? But so she had lived in that room when it was a bedroom, and she had stage 4 cancer and was like just completely, I guess, horribly, horribly ill. So I asked my neighbor, I'm like, about her. I'm like, what was that lady's name? He said, oh, her name was Dolene. And I said, Dolene, like Doreen, but Dolene. I'm like, okay, that's kind of interesting. I'm like, did she happen to have any heart issues? And they said no, she had cancer and she didn't fight the cancer. But then later I got a text from his wife and said, yeah, actually she had heart issues. She actually had 1 or 2 open heart surgeries. So
wow, that's good.
yeah, and so that kind of got me excited to get them back because they're coming back again, and we're gonna focus next time on the room where the gentleman passed away, in 2023, because we have those. They left us those cat balls, so I get those little cat toys, which I know can be, I guess, inconsistent sometimes, but man, I mean, there have been some crazy. I've had some conversations with them that when they respond, and like I said, it's random too, because like it could be in the afternoon where all of a sudden I'll see one of those balls going, and then I don't have any of the other equipment that you guys all have, though. I mean, I have just like the little, like, what do you think of that? What's that app, Ghost Tube? Like, is that a scam? It seems like it's a scam.
I'm not a fan of that one. The one with where it shows the figures and stuff. Is that the one?
I don't know. It seems like it listens to what you say, and then I don't know. I'm just like,
Yeah,
that's why I kind of like the Obulus thing, because it was supposedly not connected to anything. Is that true? Is that the difference?
yeah. I mean, I'm not a fan of really any of the apps
Yeah,
Because like the programmed, obviously they need to be programmed, and obviously you have to write the code in. So I don't see
yeah.
how it kind of how the spirits whatever can kind of get into the app itself. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't use the apps. I prefer the more physical kind
Yeah,
of.
they don't use them. They don't use the apps like that usually either. She said there was maybe one that she said that she thought was decent, but yeah, they don't like those either. So, and like the lady that is part of the paranormal team, her name's Rose. Um, uh, I think Valenzuela is her last name, and she used to be the ghost tour guide over at the stockyards. So she knows, and she's like me. She loves history, so she knows all the history of the stockyards, every little story, every little underground tunnel, every and she knows, like, she looks up the true history. So sometimes people get a little disappointed when they don't get the urban legends or the myths, but she's like me, and she's a stickler for it because I think it's so important for people to do the research, and take your time to figure out, the history of your home, because that might explain what's happening today,
Yeah, definitely. What's your family like with all this? Obviously, your wife and your kids, especially with like investigation teams coming to your house. How do they kind of take all that in?
So it's just my wife and I now. So all our kids are out, and so my wife was not cool with any of this at first. I'll be honest, because she'd be like, "Stop looking up this stuff." I'd be like, "Oh my god, look, this person died too. Look, oh my god," and like I get like getting excited, like, "Woo, another one! Oh my gosh!" Um, but I wasn't that excited. But no, then she get mad, being like, "Stop doing that! Stop! You're gonna curse! You're gonna haunt this house! You're gonna bring them on!" And I'm like, no, I'm not. So, and then when I told her about the ghost people coming out, she went to a hotel the first night. Took our dog, went to it was a dog at the time. We didn't have our other one, and took him to the hotel, and because she was freaked out. And so, I didn't tell her anything that happened that night, basically, other than some of the general stuff. But I didn't tell her about the non-human thing that's supposedly in our family room and all that stuff. I didn't get into. But now that she's kind of seen, like, nothing really as bad has happened here. I mean, she's witnessed the same stuff I have, so she kind of knows something's going on. And again, I'm probably well, I know I'm more scared of the people that walk outside on the street than I am of the people that would be in here. You know what I mean? Because we get some characters. We're in an urban downtown area, man, so we get some interesting folks walking by every now and then. But yeah, so she's pretty cool with it now. What can you do? I'm not gonna. This is our forever home. I'm 53 years old. So we're another 10 years out for retirement, hopefully. And we love the home, love the area, so we never want to move. And unless something bad started happening, I, you know I would never move, and she would never move. So
Yeah, of
yeah.
course. Yeah. You mentioned kind of at the start about in the area there's a lot of the kind of Native American history. Do
Yes.
you think any of that could play a part in the activity or the things that
That's
happen?
what like I have no clue. I don't know. And that's why I love talking to people like you, because I want people to come investigate my home. I'm not I don't charge them to do it. I like that's the medium doesn't charge either, which is what I like these people, because we're doing it for the kind of like, just we want to find out what's going on. We don't really
Yeah,
care about all the other stuff. And that's why I welcome any true paranormal people that are in it for the right reasons to come investigate. It's an open door, because to me, it's the more evidence I can get, that's going to also solidify my story of what I've experienced, and also what prompted the book. Um, because this whole thing sounds like just a great setup for me to try to sell a book, doesn't it? It sounds like it's like this whole, maybe I put this whole thing together, and but there's no way you could physically ever, even mentally, ever put something together like that, because it's completely unique. I couldn't make up the fact that a guy that used to write, died on St. Patty's Day, and then I bought his home, and I have a 4-leaf clover tattooed, and I used to write, and I mean, there are so many things that, just, you can't, you can't make up. And so I just hope people, I don't like, to me, it's not about selling a book. It's kind of about telling the story, and behind the book is what I really like.
Yeah.
The book to me is kind of secondary because it's fiction, but that's why I love, thank you for so much for having me, because the stories, I need to, take notes and put down like something where I can talk to people where it's not such a rambling, incoherent, thing that jumps from place to place to place to place. But like I said, there's so much stuff that just has happened and it goes on that I probably haven't even told you everything that I found out yet either. It's just sometimes I forget because there's so much stuff.
Yeah, no, that's great. And you mentioned the book, so what's the book called? Obviously, it's Ghostwriter. Where can we find it? Where can our listeners find more about you and the TikTok, and where to buy the book?
So the book Ghostwriter by Jennifer Bracington Crowley is out now on Amazon. You can buy it in paperback, or it's got the Kindle edition. And then as far as if you want to find more information about my home, you can get me on Instagram. It's 1911 underscore haunts, HAUNTS. And then I'm also on TikTok. I think my TikTok handle is the same, at Ghostwriter 411. At Ghostwriter 411 is my TikTok. Yeah.
Oh, nice one. Well, thank you very much, Brian, for chatting, sharing your story.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great. So, it sounds like a really interesting book, and I can't wait to read it. And I hope our listeners will go out and buy it, and obviously give us some feedback on the book as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love any feedback, and just honest feedback. If you think it sucks, tell me it sucks. If you think it's great, tell me it's great. I don't care, man. It's, just be honest, and, just read it and just tell me what you really think, it's cool. It's just as long as somebody reads it,
Well, thank you very much. We do appreciate the time. And I know it's been a fairly quick turnaround for us to get you on the podcast, so we do appreciate, and also technical difficulties we had
Yeah.
at the
Yeah.
beginning.
We kind of went through some weird technical difficulties, man. Thanks a lot, man.
Awesome.
I
Thank
appreciate
you
it.
very much.
one.
Cheers.
Okay, have a good night.
Thanks for listening to Pursuit of the Paranormal, title music created by Steve Yarwood and Ambi Infinity. If you like the show, please follow us on Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, X, and Instagram. And if you really like the show, please rate and review the show wherever you are listening. It really does help. See you next time, and until then, stay weird.